If you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I must really have all this thing messed up, that's okay, because God meets us exactly where we are. He wants to reorder and reboot our thinking so that we can walk in the full freedom that He paid for us to have. And that's what this is about.
If you're enjoying our content, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. We post weekly podcasts and more uplifting content to keep you encouraged and inspired every week.
Let's talk a little bit more about shame. And actually, I want to talk just for a few minutes of some examples from the Bible about shame and shame being redeemed, because it's so important to be able to see it. God thought it was so important that He actually added these stories in there because He wanted us to know that shame did not belong to us. God has been dealing with shame long before you and I ever battled it. So I want to start with one that most believers know about, and that's Peter. You know, Peter, I love Peter in the Bible. He is one of my favorite people to read about in the Bible because I so have related to his gruff seeming, the way that he handled things with Jesus. He didn't seem to have it all together, and so I related so much to Peter. But one thing I think we all know about him is that he denied Jesus 3 times in public. Public failure and public shame. This wasn't even something that was just between him and God. Everyone knew it. Yet we read about, as you continue reading about the story about Peter, Jesus restores him publicly on the beach when He says, "Do you love me?" Jesus didn't stop and ask him, "Why did you fail, Peter?" He said, "Do you love me?" You know why? Because love is what restores identity. Wow, that is so true. That is just kind of overwhelming. I don't know about you, but that's definitely what's restored me. So number 2, the woman at the well. So if you know much about the woman at the well, that's a wonderful story actually to read about because she was so filled with shame. She went to draw water at the noon hour with the outcast. And if you know anything about that culture at that time, no one wanted to go draw water at noon because it was already so hot. And so most people went in the early morning, cooler hours of the day to draw the water because they had to carry it back to the village. But the people that were the outcasts, the people that were the shamed, they came at noon when no one else was there. Shame changed her schedule. It changed her social life, and it isolated her. Have you ever been isolated by shame? I know I have. It's terrible. But Jesus meets her there, and she becomes the first evangelist in Samaria. Her story shows this truth. God will use what you're ashamed of as a platform for your calling. Whew, I know that's true with me. And I have to tell you, go back and read that story about the woman at the well, because it's amazing how gentle but yet firm Jesus was about meeting her there. And you know, it doesn't say that He talked to anyone else that day at the well. So He came just for her. And I believe even through this, I hope you know that He's coming after that shame in you today so that you and I can be completely free of it. So let's talk about the number 3, and that's the prodigal son. In the story of the prodigal son, he comes home prepared to be a servant. After he's run off, he's blown his inheritance on wild living, and then he comes home. It actually says that he came home after he had been in the pig's pen. He was in a pig's pen somewhere else. He'd spent all his money, and he had nothing left. And he comes home after being arrogant and prideful, and he comes home prepared to just serve in his father's house because he has nothing left. Shame told him, "You are no longer worthy to be called a son." But what happens in this story? The father, it says that the father is actually standing and he's watching for his son from a distance, and he sees the son. And what is his response? His response isn't to turn the other way. But the Father runs to him. The Father embraces him. The Father restores him. Before the Son could even finish his speech of how he was sorry and he would just become a servant in his household, the Father was covering him with a robe. Wow. Just like the grace of God to interrupt our shame. And what does he do? The robe shows a place of honor. And it says that he put sandals on his feet because servants many times didn't wear sandals, but he puts his sandals on his feet. I'm sure the Father took them off of his own feet and put them on the prodigal son. And it says he took the ring, which showed his identity, and he puts it on his finger. You talking about shutting it down. He didn't even let the son apologize. And then he throws him an extravagant party. So like the Father, to interrupt our shame and our guilt and to restore us to that place of identity.